Hi everyone, Pam Gregory, astrologer. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the second half of December and in particular the full moon we're going to have in Gemini on the 6th. But just to step back for a moment, the next 4 months really are going to be a high intensity period. Firstly, that's because they're the last 4 months of this long-running Uranus-Pluto aspect which we've been discussing over the last couple of years. Also, Mars is going to continue to energise that aspect. Mars is moving from its conjunction with Pluto in Capricorn last month, trekking all the way through to conjunct Uranus in Aries in March next year. So it will energise that Uranus-Pluto symbolism. And as I've spoken before, this is strong energy of change. It's historically about sudden, radical, disruptive, out-of-the-blue change happening that can be in your life or in the world. In a worldly sense, it's very often connected to protests and people rising up against their institutions or their governments. We've seen some of this again in America recently. The urge is always for greater freedom and equality, always. It's often young people rising up as well. Pluto is also change. It's deep fundamental change. It's a transformation. It's a snake shedding a skin. Things will never be the same again. It's very connected also to financial institutions, to debt and taxes, all familiar themes over the last few years for us. But it's really about awakening. And the big symbolism with this aspect is about awakening. It's breaking down old ways of being to break through to new ways of being. There's also another theme with Uranus-Pluto aspects, which is about scientific and technological breakthroughs. And I talk about these at length in my book, but Uranus, for instance, is very connected to air travel and space travel. And when we had the last important Uranus-Pluto aspect in the 60s, in July 1969, we put the first man on the moon. And recently we've had the very successful historic Rosetta mission. So again, an echo of stretching out to a bigger world. It also has another theme of jumps in the perception of our reality, perception of how our world works. And historically, that's been just literally finding we have a bigger world, like Columbus discovering America, strong Uranus-Pluto aspect, putting a man on the moon, strong Uranus-Pluto aspect. This time around, as well as the space travel I've just mentioned, I think it's also a real awakening to the idea that the world is made up of energy and vibration. I think that's the real paradigm shift that Uranus-Pluto is helping us to manifest. The other reason this symbolism will be so strong is we have the 6th of 7 exact Uranus-Pluto squares on the 15th of December. So all through these 3 years of this aspect, the Uranus-Pluto move apart a few degrees, then come together exactly. Apart a few degrees, come exactly together. So this is the 6th of 7 exact squares. And when that happens, again, it acts as a point of focus for the symbolism. It heightens the symbolism I've just been talking about. And that's discussed, as I say, at much more length in my book. But stepping back to our full moon, that's happening on the 6th of December, and it's happening at 14:17 of Gemini, and it's at 4:26 Pacific AM, 7:26 AM Eastern, and 12:26 UK time. That's lunchtime. And people who'll be likely to feel this most are people born between the 3rd and the 7th of March, 3rd and the 7th of June, 5th to the 9th of September or December of any year. So with a full moon, the moon is always opposite the sun. So the moon is at 14 of Gemini and the sun is opposite in Sagittarius. But Mercury and Venus are also in Sagittarius, so there's quite a strong Sagittarian theme here. And Sagittarian energy is wonderful. It's really expansive. It's to do with pure truth, higher truth, meaning. It's to do with belief systems and also bigger visions in an interconnected universe. It's really wonderful. Blue sky thinking, bigger visions. At the same time, transiting Chiron is square to Mercury. Now, Mercury is the planet of the mind. It's how we communicate. It's also how we perceive, very importantly. And Chiron squaring Mercury is really asking us not just for a change of mental perspective, but a change of spiritual perspective. Because Chiron is known as the mystic bridge. It urges always to move us upwards, to see things from a higher point of view. So this is very much an echo of the bigger theme, the bigger Uranus-Pluto theme of awakening to a higher level of being. It's very interesting that we're getting this strong reinforcement of this theme at the full moon. Also at this time, we have a wonderful, inspiring, grand trine in fire. We have an equilateral triangle between the Sun in Sagittarius, Uranus in Aries, and Jupiter in Leo. And this is really inspiring. It's very future-oriented. It's about bigger visions, bigger future possibilities of who you can be. So this is a wonderful time to really meditate and think upon who do you want the future you to be? What kind of vision can you reach for in who you want to become? Great time to do that. 2 days after this full moon, Jupiter is still in Leo, but starts its retrograde motion. Now, what retrograde motion means is that it appears to be going backwards with respect to the Earth. Planets never really go backwards, but it appears to go backwards with respect to the Earth. And what that means symbolically is that we have to go back over whatever the symbolism of that planet represents. So in this case, Jupiter moving back from 23 of Leo all the way back to 13 of Leo next April, we need to go back over beliefs, go back over anything which is limiting in order to let it go to achieve the future vision that we're aspiring to. So wonderful full moon coming up, and just ask yourself, where does that 14 degrees of Gemini fall for you? Because this will really indicate to you the cycles of completion, the cycles of closure that are coming up. And you can think about those future possibilities for you and think about your higher truths as well that you want to aspire to, your values that you want to aspire to. Because it isn't just a cycle of completion, it's then a change and how you want to move forwards. And we'll be talking about that in the next video for the second half of December. That's going to be a rich time because we have a new moon in Capricorn, we have of course the winter solstice, and we have very importantly Saturn moving from Scorpio into Sagittarius for the next 3 years. So I'll be talking a lot about that. But if you'd like to learn more about my book or get more free monthly information, just check out my website, www.thenextstep.uk.com. And thanks for listening.